Hey, hey, hey.
Hello,
We're
everyone.
back.
We're back. Hello. Welcome to the Unapologetically Badass podcast. I am Renee. How are you all? Hey, Sierra.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again. I'm
And
excited. We have a really awesome
wow,
guest here tonight.
we
Today.
do. Hello, Melissa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Really
Good.
good, actually.
So, this is Bite Size Health, Melissa Hooper on nutrition, wellness, and resilience. And I love your story, and I can't wait to share you with the audience. So, we can just dive right in. Is there something that you want to start off and tell people who you are, what you do?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and how that separates dietitians from nutritionists is that we have our 4-year degree and we do an internship, and now we're actually required to have a master's degree to actually practice as a registered dietitian. So I have all of that, and focused on my master's thesis topic with childhood obesity, and have refreshed all of the knowledge during a certification a couple of years ago, making use of COVID and
Yeah.
downtime.
Good.
And yeah, I like to really focus on weight loss, women's health, cardiovascular disease, and just general health overall, because I feel like a lot of people think they might know how to eat healthy, but they may not necessarily understand how to read labels or how to put all the pieces together.
Oh my gosh, for
You
sure.
are
Mm.
I was just curious and thinking, are you guys learning now like genetics and
Mm.
how each body is different and how genetically everybody kind of needs to eat a little differently? Is that something that you're being taught or that's being taught in the dietitian world? I'm just curious.
Well, it was a long time ago when I was in college. So I don't know exactly what they're teaching in the school programs, but I do know it's been floating around for a few years. I have looked into doing some classes on that just to kind of get a little more knowledge base on it. It's not required, at least at this point, for us as dietitians that I know of. There might be something in the works, that I'm not sure of or don't know about. But I do think it's really important to address each person individually. We do have our protocols, which are based off of research. And so we can approach the patient or a client with those protocols. And then as we do our assessments, that's how we tailor it to them as an individual, their lifestyle, any other chronic diseases they may be managing, or any goals that they might have.
So, what
Perfect.
made you get into a career in nutrition?
Well, I was always interested in it, but I will say the very first thing that really kind of stemmed my thoughts in this direction. I really liked science to begin with, but I could not see myself in a lab working with test tubes all day. I'm way too chatty for that, and I'm way too people oriented than that, because I get my
Mhm.
energy off of being around people and helping people and working with people. So I got, well, my grandmother, my very favorite grandmother, ended up getting heart disease, and she ended up doing an open heart surgery when I was about 7.
Oh.
And then when they opened her up, they didn't know she had breast cancer on top of it.
Oh.
And so the cancer spread like wildfire when they were in there. And this was a long time ago, when open heart
Yeah.
surgeries were usually like 8-hour procedure,
Yeah.
and you didn't even know if someone was going to come out alive. Whereas now it's really kind of buttoned down. They might still have some extra issues to deal with, but yeah, so that was the first thought that I was like, man, and then I started working out, realizing I wasn't going to grow very tall. All my other friends were getting taller, and I thought, and I really like gymnastics, and why don't I start working out? And that's what really kind of started my path towards just learning about nutrition. And I was about a teenager and didn't even know there was a career in it until I got into looking at colleges, and I got recruited to
Mhm.
a college for their nutritional program. And I
Oh,
was just found my match. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Combine the science with people and helping them. And it's something that I love and am passionate about anyways. So
so this has been your career all along, is nutrition.
yeah. And in fact,
Has it
my parents were,
evolved or have you evolved or career change or anything like that? I'm curious.
well, being a clinical dietitian is not a very high paid job, to be honest. It's a hard work. It's hard
Mhm.
work to do a
Yeah.
clinical role on your feet, walking around, talking to patients who are very, very sick. And the last thing they want to talk about is making changes to their favorite dessert or something like that when they leave the hospital. So it's kind of a thankless job for the clinical work, although it's very important. But yeah, so I, did do some clinical work here and there throughout my career, but mainly I really liked the jobs where I was doing television. I worked with a grocery store chain in Southern California and was their dietitian. So I was able to help with the programming and writing material that would go out to 108, almost 167 stores at the time, and going out on and doing radio programs, television, online, print, all of it. And really giving correct information to people is important, because sometimes the marketing can be truthful, but not the whole truth. And so it's something that it's definitely something that I've enjoyed doing. But to your point, your question, I did go into sales for a while in medical sales, but it was selling nutrition products into the hospitals or compounding pharmacies and home infusion pharmacies, because there's different types of nutrition support. One of them's like a tube feeding, where it either goes through the nose, the mouth, or they can place like a PEG tube, where it's a surgically placed tube, and you just open it up and can put the nutrition in that way. It's all liquid. And that one's not, it is intense, but it's not as bad as what the IV nutrition is, because all of the fluids that go through the IV have to be the very proper amounts. There's no wiggle room, and you really have to have the right components in the right percentages and concentrations. And so, so that's something I used to sell, was those products to the hospitals and the home infusion pharmacies.
And then how did you turn all of that into developing your own business? And when did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, so when I lived in Kansas City for a while, and I was doing television. I was actually a media spokesperson for a company where I did all their television, radio, print interviews, and I covered 3 top 100 markets. And in the process of doing that, I had stations that were asking me to come on and do other things for them. And so one of them, I was able to work with them and create a weekly segment called the Easy Living segment. And I helped to co-produce it and host it. And I wrote what went in the teleprompter. And this is eons ago. I can't even believe I did this so long ago. And but it really set me up to say, you know what, this is actually really cool, where you just kind of have your freedom to pick your topic, pick your person you want to interview, or do my own set design and all of that. And from that, I ended up getting recruited to California and was the dietitian for the grocery store chain. And in the height of the housing bubble, unfortunately, that program did get dissolved. And so I had already been working with some of the vendors, and one of them happened to be Clear Channel Radio at the time. Now it's iHeartRadio. And so I ended up
I love iHeartRadio.
Wow, yeah. And so they have 8 stations in LA. And so I ended up creating a health program for them that went on Coast 103.5 and Hot 92.9. And so from there, I did a little bit of that. And long story short, that didn't last too long either. And then I decided to go into medical sales and do that for a while, and just kind of make up some of the financial deficits with other jobs and things that I'd done. And then I basically just said, you know what, with the age of telehealth and with all of what happened with COVID, they're really kind of put more emphasis on what we do as dietitians. And so that's where I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to build a business, why don't I do it where I can basically live anywhere, as long as it's within the continental or within the US, and I can, talk to every patient that wants to see a dietitian, that, if their insurance covers it or not, I can still talk to them either way. But so yes, I started doing that. And I've also worked with brands and helping them as a consultant and making sure that their messaging is accurate, it's truthful, based off of research and science, and helping them put those terms into a language that the consumers can understand and purchase. So we really enjoy that too, because a lot of these, new brands, they'll come up and they may or may not have anybody working with them to help them connect those dots for their product to the consumer. And that's really important. If they don't understand what's healthy about the product, how are they going to use it or even want to buy the product? So yeah, there's a lot of capacities where I've started doing some of my own business, and I'm just excited to get moving and do more of this.
That's fantastic. And it's called Bite-Size Nutrition.
Correct. Yes.
And how do you envision your company helping people? Like, what do you want from it? Because it looks like Renee might be froze. Did she froze on your end too?
Yeah, it does look like that.
Okay. So she could be talking right now, but I'm curious. So like, how do you envision this? How do you, I mean, what kind of support are you offering, or what do you want to offer? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, when I work with one-on-one clients, I'm helping them with their goals. If they want to lose weight, or if they have prediabetes and don't want to keep inching towards a full diabetic diagnosis, or if they have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or, a lot of these types of chronic diseases can be reversed. And in some cases, people can come off medication if they are diligent to do what they need to do with their diet and exercise. And so I help them with putting together a plan and a diet plan that will also help them, incorporate exercise as well as the diet. And I have had people who are pretty successful. I mean, as long as they're doing their part. And it's hard when I want to help some people and they just aren't quite there. And really, we don't really want to make those decisions, like to stop maybe eating a brownie every day, or whatever it might be.
Or stop smoking.
Yes,
I know some people, like, they want it, they're leaning towards heart disease, but they don't want to stop smoking or give up their wine, or whatever that may be. And so they're not, I get it, they're not really there. I used to own a gym, Melissa, and people would come in and they're like, I come in all the time, but I'm not losing weight. And I was like, okay, let's sit down and talk, okay, so what did you eat these last 3 days since I've seen you? And then the truth comes out and you're like, well,
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I do try to approach it with empathy and compassion, because there's a lot of people that, for one reason or another, I mean, everybody's different. Like, as we were talking about earlier, it's not just all about genetics, but it's also about how they were raised. What kind of habits did they see modeled in their home when they were growing up? When I did my master's thesis over childhood obesity, it's such a factor about how children develop their habits growing into adulthood by what they see from their parents or whoever was their care provider. So there's so many things that go into it. And, and actually now obesity is considered a disease. It's not just a condition or somebody who can't stop eating a dessert here and there. I mean, it's a true diagnosis.
Addiction. And that's what people who have like the what's the gastric bypass and stuff, like, there are a lot of side effects that go into that psychologically, and they try to coach you on it. But I have seen like 4 people get that done, and the effects after: alcoholism, sexual addiction, drug addiction, different addictions take place because they weren't taught to deal with that addiction.
True. Yeah, I had started out in my career with the hospital in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, and we had a program for weight loss, and there were 3 different categories. There was a total liquid program, a partial beverage, partial food program, and then a total food program, and it was all based on how much weight that they needed to lose. And our patients that were on the total liquid program, a lot of them would come in and they were 300 plus. I mean, we literally even had some patients that were, pushing 500 pounds, and, early 30s, they were not old people and, developing all these other secondary diseases from it. But, we had a multi approach where we had a dietitian, we had an exercise specialist, we had a nurse, we had a psychologist, and even just a doctor who could double check all the labs and make sure everybody's, good. So that was, really kind of cutting edge for that time. And now it's just the protocol that we have for obesity. If they're doing a bariatric surgery, or if they're going down a route where they're doing a liquid program, or putting themselves into a medical, what do you call, where they're basically going into a state of ketosis where their body's kind of eating itself, and that's how they're losing the weight. But to your point, I mean, I really don't have a problem with this if they have a certain BMI, a certain weight for height. If they're in a category of a basal or body mass index, which is what the BMI stands for.
But do you like really follow that? Because I just have to know, because it always says I'm overweight, like really, really like obese overweight. And I don't think I am.
Well, there are some outliers on that, especially if people work out and they have more muscle than fat, then they're going to look higher on that BMI. And that's what we're trained as, dietitians to know that information when we're working with people. But I'm not really opposed to some of those, surgeries or even some of the medications, but there are side effects to these. And
Oop, did she freeze?
I think so. So she was talking about side effects to,
Yeah,
I think there's side effects to everything, Renee,
I
while we
know.
wait for her to come back. I mean, and at what point do you know that you need to get help when it comes to
Yeah,
obesity is something I want to ask her, because like she says, she's dealing with some people who are 400 or 500 pounds. And if you are, and you're one of our listeners, like, we love you. We want
right,
you to feel good.
right.
But at what point do you think
Right.
that's
Do you need
mystery?
do you need to get help? And at what point, like, I'm curious when she said, when your body goes into ketosis. So
Yeah.
we see so much about the keto diet. Is that something, that dietitians recommend, or is that like, no, we want a, fully balanced, well balanced diet versus, just going down one road. And I'm sure it's not a
Because you
all one
can't
size fits all, but
you can't stay on those forever. Like, you
no,
can't.
I mean, I tried keto for a bit and it worked, but I couldn't sustain it. I'm like, I
No,
need
and
my strawberries. I miss my fruit. Like, I love fruit,
well, it's
but
so bad for your kidneys. So
yeah,
after, and that's why they have a way of balancing it, where once you go into it, you got to do like they call it like the snack day, right? And you have
yeah,
to do that because you can't be at the lowest point, or your kidneys will start to shut down.
right,
And
right.
then on the flip end, if you do the other kind of diets where it's just like vegan, or just juicing, like she said, a
Yeah,
liquid diet,
right.
then you're just having all these other problems. And
I
so
mean,
it's
I'm juicing. I juice like this.
I'm juicing
We're
grapes right
juicing,
now. We're
right? We're
juicing. We
juicing.
always juice, girl. Hey, girl, you're back.
You're
Yeah,
I don't know what
we
happened.
were
I'm just
just
like talking away, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, my screen's just swirling, swirling, swirling. So,
That's
we were
okay. So
just
we were
discussing. Go ahead, Renee.
Yeah, we were discussing a couple of things. We were like, "Oh, we really want to find out from you your opinions on a couple of things." You
Mhm,
mentioned ketosis, and
mhm,
we see a lot about the keto diet. I know I've
mhm,
tried it for a short period of time. I didn't find it sustainable. So, as a
mhm.
dietitian, is that recommended? Those kind of diets recommended, or are you looking, or you recommend more of a like full balance where it's chicken, fish, fruits, vegetables, or are you like, no, to go totally vegan? Like, where there's so much and so much confusion, what's kind of the golden rule?
Well, that is hard to say in a nutshell
Yeah, yeah,
because everybody is different.
it is.
And so that's what
Okay.
goes into part of the assessment that I do is finding out, what a patient or a person might have as a goal. But to answer your question about keto, it's not a bad thing. But it isn't sustainable. It's only recommended to do it for about 21 days, and then you
Yeah.
need to go off of it because the body has to have certain nutrients. Like our brain's main source of fuel is carbohydrate. So
Mhm.
it's like we have to have some carbohydrate, but in our American, typical diet, a lot of people get more sugars and more carbohydrates than they probably really need on any regular basis.
We
So
were just talking about that, Melissa, is that you don't realize until you live with the diabetic how
mhm.
pretty much everything has sugar in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, also the right sugar, right? Like we see there's a lot going on right now. Red dye is being
Oh, yeah.
eliminated, which hallelujah, right? I'm sure
No,
you're
I know.
happy.
I'm so excited to see what they do with this new administration and the food supply in our country.
Yeah.
They took trans fats out of our diet, which is like the margarines. Those are it's kind of like a fake butter. In a nutshell, that's kind of hard to explain, but it's not really a natural fat. And
Yeah.
now and they decided to finally take that off of what they call the GROS list. It's generally recognized as safe.
Okay.
But there's no boundaries on it. There's nothing that says how much is too much or how little do you actually need, because there wasn't any. Um,
Mhm.
but they took that basically off, and now that's like one of the most recent changes they've made to the food label, is saying that now manufacturers have to say if they have a trans fat in there. And they're actually supposed to be taking them out of all the products. And that trans fat is really, critical with people who develop heart disease. A lot of times they were, eating products that had a lot of these, trans
Oh.
fats in them. But what I've been seeing now since COVID, a year after they decided to take the trans fats out of the diet, now we're seeing bioengineered foods everywhere.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
if you've noticed this, but you can't pick up anything that is like a starter kit, like maybe a muffin mix or a bread mix, or hardly anything that has any kind of flour in it. It's there's a bioengineered product somewhere in there, but they're not even declaring which ingredient is the bioengineered food. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some work to do. For
Wow.
sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping
Well,
to see a
that's like
lot
a
of great.
whole topic, Melissa, like where I
Yeah.
think we should have you on the show later just to like dive into what isn't what, you know what I mean? Because like right now it's really
Mhm.
about you. We want to highlight what you're doing, how you're helping people, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of conversation behind everything when it comes to food.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's the thing, so many
absolutely.
people don't know what to buy. I mean, I use I'm not an expert in diet and nutrition, but
Mhm.
I don't know how you feel about like the Yuka app, but I use the Yuka app to scan the UPCs to see whether or not it's good,
It's
because some
real.
of these ingredients, I don't know what the
Mhm.
hell it is. It's
Mhm.
My
terrible.
sister started using it and she was like, "Did you know the seasoning? The seasoning we've been using our whole life. You can't get that anymore." And I'm like, well, I don't know if I should say it on here because I don't want any legal repercussions against somebody's like,
Right, right, right.
those ladies are saying,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
anyway, so she's like, "Don't buy this anymore." And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I would assume, is it still like, the norm if you're shopping in the grocery store on the outskirts of the store? That's typically the best, or is that no? You're
Well,
oh, you made us say no, okay.
so there is some new things on that too, and there's a lot of controversy over what they call the APEL, APEEL. There's some controversy on how those are actually grown, those fruits and vegetables. Um, I just think the most natural state is the best. So when you hear people say whole foods, what does that mean? Well, that means something that's not been modified or it isn't made with other ingredients. It's in its most natural state, like a piece of fruit or a vegetable, or a whole grain.
How do
But
you
Like,
how do we know if
know?
those fruits
How
and
do
vegetables
you
are even
know?
good?
Yes, how do
yeah.
you even know? Because and you could even look at organic and non-organic, but how do you really
Mhm.
know? I had a German son, well, he's my German son now. I had a German foreign exchange student come and live with us for a year, and he's like part of our family now. We love him.
Mhm.
But I mean, his stomach, Melissa, for 3 months, and then sometimes when we ate things, it was so messed up like the whole year. Bless his little heart. He
Mhm.
could not handle our processed or however or whatever it was. And
Mhm.
we don't eat unhealthy in our home. Yes, he occasionally went for his canes because he loved it, tried
Mhm.
Whataburger, but messed him up.
Yeah.
So how do you know?
Well, I will say this. I went to Europe for the first time this last summer, and I could not believe how delicious
Oh,
all the food was. I just really couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. And, and then we come back to America and all these products that we have. I mean, looking at the food label, you would think a slice of bread shouldn't have 20 ingredients
right,
or more, you
right,
know?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't say this is a bioengineered food,
right.
It's like if you're using natural products, why do you have 20 ingredients that are all written in a scientific name that nobody knows unless they are a scientist, which
Right.
even then they might not necessarily know all of those ingredients,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it is a difficult challenge, but I think they've got a lot ahead of them to make things healthier versions, kind of dialing it back to maybe what it was in the 70s or 60s, which, even then, I don't know how well, they were, in terms of being healthy or whole or,
Yeah.
but the
We
best
have
that,
to support farmers again. We have
Mhm,
to support homesteads. We have to
mhm,
support, and if we don't get back to supporting the land that produces the food for us, I don't think we'll ever go backwards, Melissa,
yeah,
to the 70s because,
yeah,
now people are doing barns where they can do the vertical food growing, which is if it's not bio whatever and it's natural, okay, I'll give it a try.
mhm,
But most of them are UV lights. They have this kind of chemical being put on it because it
Well,
is
and
growing
that's the
from
thing, the
the
pesticides and all of that. You go into the supermarket, if you're shopping there for fruits and vegetables, there's so much garbage on top of the healthy fruits and vegetables. You think you're eating well, but then
mhm,
you're really like consuming so many chemicals and terrible
mhm,
things into your body. Or even some like we saw the recall on organic
mhm. Yeah.
I
fruits.
know. I say this. This is what I told my daughter-in-law today because my garden, because we had some snow here in my garden. It's my winter garden is done. It is. I'm like
Mhm,
so depressed. Went and cooked my last broccoli because I know now that I'm not going to have any more. But I
mhm.
just say that if it's big, it's probably not real. I
Yeah.
know
Well,
that sounds weird, but
mhm,
when I make my own food, when I garden my own food, I don't get, radishes this big. My
mhm,
radishes are this big and I'm like, "Okay, so if it's big, I'm not buying it."
mhm. Well, and that's actually a really good point too. Talking about the food that's grown in more, I guess, like a test tube or grown vertically, food gets its nutrition from the soil that it's grown in. So if it's not really being grown in soil, what is in it? I mean,
Yes.
that
Yes.
I think that we don't know yet. We don't know how that's going to
Right.
really impact it because I actually did a research paper way back in college on leeks,
Mhm. Mhm.
leeks, leeks that grow in the ground. And this was
Yeah.
it was an actual research article talking about how over the generations, those leeks had less and less nutrition in them because they weren't giving the soil a chance to rest and replenish the nutrition
Hmm.
that's actually in it. So, there's just so many components
Yeah.
and aspects that go into our food and the way it's grown, the way it's processed. Another example, a lot of times if you see something that says enriched flour, whether it's like an enriched whole wheat flour, enriched white flour, what they're doing is they're stripping everything out of that grain, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the fiber, and then when it's enriched, they're adding back those vitamins and minerals, but they're not adding back fiber. So you think
Hmm.
about that. A lot of our foods are lacking fiber because the natural product that is the base of that product doesn't have its natural components.
And our gut is our second brain, and
Yes,
without fiber, it doesn't work properly.
Right.
absolutely.
And your whole body gets screwed up, which
Yeah.
for women, I love that
Mhm,
you talked about heart disease and
mhm.
because for women, heart disease is the number one. A lot of people will think it's breast cancer, but it's not.
Right.
Right.
Women get heart disease like 100 times more than men do.
Yeah.
It's scary.
And that's another really good point. I used to work on a post-cardiac thoracic surgery floor when I was working for a hospital. And men and women present differently with heart attacks.
Yes.
Men, it's always that feeling of like an elephant on their chest. Whereas for women, a lot of times they present with digestive issues and don't even know that they're having a heart issue. So, there's just a lot of things. I mean, gosh, we could spend a lot of time.
I know. I know.
I know. That's
I'm
what I'm
just,
saying. We gotta have you on the show again and pick like a specific topic or something that really,
yes,
really.
Yeah.
I would love that. And
But what advice would you give for the general audience without having a full assessment as far as, if they want to make some changes and they know they want to be a healthier version of themselves, what would be some recommendations for the general population?
Yeah. So just generally speaking, without,
Yeah.
any, recommendations for any kind of chronic disease or anything like that, we need to eat more fruits and vegetables and whole fresh fruits and vegetables, or even the frozen at this point. They do freeze them nowadays where they're individually quick frozen. So they do maintain their nutrition if they're frozen. But if you can get a whole, foods where it's fruits, vegetables, the whole grains, multigrains, adding more fiber into the diet, eating products that have gone through a little bit of a fermentation process like kefir, kombucha, sauerkraut. Those are going to help give your body what it needs to make its own probiotics, which is also going to be helpful for the gut. And making sure that you're not eating too much sugar. I mean, that alone, if people just cut out, like if they're drinking colas, just getting rid of one cola a day over a whole year will help somebody lose almost 20 pounds with just that one change, like with no other changes, just changing, drinking one cola. So I would cut the colas out. You can do some flavored waters. Those are actually really, really good these days and don't have the artificial sweeteners in them. I would just try to keep everything as natural as possible. It doesn't mean everything is going to be that way, but trying to keep things natural, reduce the sugars, and have more of a balanced diet and cut the portions in half. Our portions are so large in America. Even if you're eating something healthy and it's a huge portion, it's still going to be probably too much.
Right. That's
How
a
long
very
does
good point.
Yeah, so how long does and I think that we need to ask this because this is like such a big deal. When your stomach has expanded and you're overweight and you're used to portions as big as your head and now you need to reduce it to your nose and mouth, how long does it take for your stomach to then adjust back to accept that this amount, the smaller portion amount is okay? Do you have an idea or know
Well,
that?
the body takes about 20 minutes to signal from the stomach to the brain that it's full. And so that's another thing too. If a person's eating really quickly, they're going to bypass that cue and maybe overeat. And then what happens is they feel so full, they're almost uncomfortable or miserable. So slowing down, taking smaller bites, chewing them a little longer, gives your body time to do that natural cue to say, slow it down. We're getting a little, full here. Sorry, I hear my dog barking.
That's okay.
Oh my goodness.
You're talking food, and the dog's like, "Hey, I want some."
Do you want me to put her out real fast?
No, we can't hear her.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. But yeah. And then thinking about like if a person does like a surgery to reduce their stomach, a lot of times those bands, that's what they're doing is they're taking a normal sized stomach and shrinking it down. So then they no longer can eat those big portions. And that's what that surgery is meant to do. So they have to, get a lot of concentrated nutrition in small amounts because they're not otherwise going to get the nutrition they need because they may not be able to eat as much.
That makes a
So I
lot of
know they
sense.
say it takes like 21 days to create a habit. So I would just say like maybe for our audience, like just give yourself 21 days, cut that portion in half, eat slower, count to 10 when you eat that one fry.
That's pretty
No
funny.
fries.
I mean, look, I also believe that you need to be happy, and being happy also makes a big difference on everybody's health.
Yeah.
So I don't say that things are completely off the limits. I mean, if there is like, maybe a grandma's favorite apple pie, I mean, maybe you can have a piece of pie every once in a while, as long as that's not every day.
Right. Right.
That's the problem, is that we have so many, foods that we want to eat on a regular basis. And that's where we get into trouble. We're not looking at it as a treat. It's like, I'm going to eat this big, sandwich or hamburger or whatever. And then I'm going to have dessert and I'm going to have a cola. And this is like an everyday thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm curious with the influx of women, especially men too, taking like the GLP-1s and the
Oh, the
compounds
Ozempic.
and stuff, right? Yeah. So there's the Ozempic, the Mounjaro, there's all of that, but then people are also getting the compound GLP-1 and getting it at home. How do you feel about those things? Do you feel like that's, you know, helping? Is it, dangerous side effects? Are you like, as a dietitian, you're going to stay away from this? And
Mhm. I think they have their place with the right person and the right situation. I do have patients and clients that I've worked with that are taking them. I don't know if they were. I mean, I wasn't there when they got presented to take it and a prescription written, but I believe it's important to know all that entails. There's going to be side effects, and a lot of people have to take it for the rest of their lives. Some
oh,
people have
Wow.
stomach problems and can't stay on it. And for me, I look at it this way: if somebody is also working with a dietitian and they're also working with somebody to get an actual exercise plan that they will do, that's not going to hurt them if they're too heavy, they don't want to hurt their joints, like their knees and their hips and their back or something like that. But if they're working on making lifestyle behavioral changes, either before or while they're on it, then they're probably going to have, results that are going to be sustainable.
mhm,
If they're
Yeah.
just looking at it like, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to keep eating my pizzas and drinking my colas and doing whatever, like, you know, that that's a recipe for disaster, because there's only so much stress you can put on some of these other organs, which we didn't even talk about that with I've had a lot of bariatric patients that I've worked with that almost all of them have had to have their gallbladders out after getting their
Yep.
surgery done.
Yep.
So I mean,
right,
it's like there's other effects,
mhm,
from taking these medications. And I think for some people, it's a lifesaver. Like people who might be 300 plus,
right,
this may be their only way to really
mhm,
get to a healthy weight to where they can live another, 10 years, 15 years, maybe even 20 years. So I think it has to be individually assessed for the person. I don't think everybody needs to go on it. I mean, I've known people who they just want to lose 10 pounds and they're going to go get their friend who, is a nurse
yep,
practitioner, can write them an order for it. And I'm
right,
like, this is not what it's meant to be.
right, and
Yeah, there
that's
has
what
to be a balance.
yeah,
Mhm,
but that's what I was curious about because I see that a lot that,
mhm,
for those women that are just literally wanting to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, they're
mhm,
getting the prescriptions for the GLP-1 compound
mhm,
without possibly understanding whether or not that could be like a life sentence where they are then forced to stay on it. There's just
mhm.
doesn't seem to be enough information
True.
to truly understand whether or not, that it's not.
Mhm.
So in other words, there's no easy fix. If you want
Correct.
to, if you
There
want to
isn't.
be healthy
Mhm,
and lose a few pounds, you need to diet and exercise.
And
And you
mhm.
after a
need
certain
to
age, it gets harder. So you have to diet and exercise.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just
And
to
I think we've
say,
all probably experienced that, when you're in your 20s, you can cut
yeah,
one of your little, fun foods out and, drop a few pounds by the weekend, but it changes. And that's another really good point. So
yeah,
every decade after 30, we start to lose 10% of our metabolism. So again, if somebody never changed their diet or never did anything different with their exercise from the time they were 20 to the time they were like 50 or 60, their metabolism is going to slow down 10%. So they're gaining 10% of their body weight every year, every decade. And but it can be changed. It's
yeah,
just, again, these are things that working with a professional, like like the dietitians, and also getting an exercise plan in place
right.
really can help somebody. And I don't really like to look at it like this is just work. I mean, I like to find things that somebody enjoys doing, that
Mhm.
they include that and adopt that into their everyday, habits. Like they get up, they brush their hair, they brush their teeth, and this is what they do to eat, and this is what they do to, make sure they're getting enough physical activity. Because at some point it becomes just a part of who they are rather
Right.
than something that they feel
Yeah.
like they have to do,
Because if you have to
Maybe
do
just
something,
feel
most people aren't gonna wanna do it. If somebody's forcing you to do something and
yeah.
feel like, "Oh my god, now I have to do this," they're not gonna
Right.
wanna do it. But if they're like, "You know what? I could live like this. I can have a little protein shake in the morning and start doing a little bit of walking or, basic
And
stuff."
then when you do start to do that walk or whatever it is, and then it feels so good after a certain
Mhm.
amount of time, then if
Yeah.
you stop, you notice and you're like, "Oh, I was really
Mhm.
feeling good when I
Right.
was doing that." And
Yeah.
True. And you think about mental health,
yeah,
exercise releases endorphins. It helps with that overall emotional and mental well-being too. And look at how much mental, illness that we have going on right now. Is it
yeah,
possible that because we're lacking, certain nutrition components and exercise and the bulk of our society, maybe that's a part of the contribution to that?
Right. Right.
awesome.
That's
What
incredible.
advice are you gonna give, some of our viewers and listeners? Like, we were having a conversation when you accidentally, lost connection,
I'll say I don't know what
and,
happened.
it just went
I
away.
disappeared.
Like, at what point, Melissa, do you look down and say, "I cannot lose weight. I have cut out the cola. I have cut out this. I have cut out that." Because there's other issues. There's a lot of
Mhm,
health issues out there that cause you to gain weight, and there's nothing you can
mhm,
do. And some people don't even know this, but breast cancer can actually cause you to gain weight
mhm.
and you don't even know you have it, but
True.
your weight gain could be from breast cancer or thyroid or all these things. But
Yeah.
at what point do you go and get help, or do you reach out to somebody like you and say, "I've cut out this, I've started walking, I've done that, I don't know what I'm doing wrong."
Mhm.
Hormones.
Exactly.
Let's just talk about them fucking hormones again. They just make me mad because
Yeah.
they do everything. Just when you say you lose that 10%, you're losing 2% collagen, 10% metabolism,
Yeah.
and now you lost all your estrogen. Shit, I'm
Yeah.
just screwed. So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I
and
know
I
there's
used to do
foods that you can eat that are estrogen
Mhm.
based that help your body to produce it. But when do you
Yeah.
say, you know what, I need help?
Yeah. Well, when I do assessments, I also like to look at people's labs and I do read their lab work. That's part of, what I do with my patients. And it's not only just ladies that are 40 plus. I mean, I'm working with a lot of women in their 20s and 30s that have PCOS. And that's a whole other ball of wax, but their hormones are completely out of the normal range for other reasons. So, yeah, it is definitely important to consider the whole picture of a patient or a client. And I do look at that, especially if I've had a conversation with someone and they've told me all these things that they've done differently, like taking different, sweets out, reducing sugars, reducing calories, they're exercising, they're literally doing every single thing they can possibly think of. That's when I'm like, well, let's check your labs. Can you get your doctor to write you an order for, to check your hormones, to check your thyroid, to check other things that might be going on because even just having what we call a high A1C, it's a hemoglobin A1C, that's a real indicator for prediabetes and diabetes. um, so there, you're absolutely right. There's so many disease states that can be supported and helped with nutrition and also exercise. A lot of them with exercise too. So it's who we are, that
Mhm.
whole saying, we are what we eat. We really are.
Mhm.
And that's not just a little pun for a mom to get their kid to eat. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah.
If we put junk in, it's going to produce junky results. If we put healthy foods in, we're going to get healthier results. And I think a lot of people want to be healthier. And I'm really happy to see that we have an administration that wants to focus on this, but it's going to be a really huge task. No lie. They're going to have a lot of things to drill down through and see what they can do to make some changes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm really happy that at least the conversations are being had,
Mhm.
and there's a spotlight that people
Mhm.
are really making those decisions and making a conscious effort that when they are in the grocery store, that they are maybe making some tweaks, whether or
Yeah.
not they feel that that's working. But it's wonderful that we have resources, people like you,
Mhm.
that somebody can contact,
Yeah,
um, in
absolutely.
order to help them devise a plan, because we don't know. And if we didn't grow up with these healthy guidelines and that
Mhm.
conscious lifestyle, then it could be overwhelming. So we
Yeah.
need someone to guide us through it. We talk about coaching for business. We need coaching. This is coaching to be a better, healthier version of ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
Yeah, and
what,
people, when if it's an addiction, and sometimes you don't know or understand that if you have a food addiction, you don't know to ask for help, and you
Mhm.
don't know who to ask for help, and you don't know how or where to get the support. And deep down, you see your pant size getting bigger or something like that, and it's like you're not happy with it, but you just don't
Mhm.
know where to start.
Mhm.
And so, Melissa, thank you for being there for people that are like that, because it's a challenge. Life just sucks sometimes, but it gets
Yeah.
better whenever you get out there and start moving and eating right, because you start to feel good, right?
Yeah. And now,
well,
and that's the thing, you have to start where you are,
yeah.
and not have that feeling of guilt or shame, because I feel like a lot of times before we've now recognized and acknowledged that obesity is actually a disease.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people who were overweight and obese probably felt that guilt and shame. And it's very
Yeah.
discouraging to try to make changes if you feel like you're the problem. But, it's really about maybe they just didn't get the knowledge. Maybe they didn't have a good role model.
Mhm.
Maybe they had a lower socioeconomic home that they grew up in, that they didn't have these other healthy, fresh foods available. I mean, there's just a lot of things that can impact that.
Yeah,
I
and that's
have
why it's
a
important
really
to contact you for guidance, because oftentimes
yeah.
we just guess. We're like, "Oh,
Yes.
try this, I'll try that." And
Yeah.
before you know, like, none of it's working. And
Yeah.
like we said, if we're not seeing results, we get frustrated and think it's
Mhm.
us, and then we're like, "You know what? I'm not gonna bother freaking trying." That's what a lot of
Yeah.
people do, versus if they go to you and say, "Okay, here's where I am, help
Mhm.
me."
Yeah.
And you can then dive in and give them a real, true, actionable plan.
Yep.
Melissa, I have a really, really crazy. I know somebody who means something special to me, who has what I think, um, maybe a sensory disorder of some
Mhm.
kind. I don't know if this is a real thing, but can't eat any kind of food that actually is flavored. So
Mhm.
they stick to rice, potatoes, but only certain kinds. Texture is a big deal. They can do
Mhm.
pasta, anything like unflavored and all carbs.
Oh,
Hmm.
Have you
Interesting.
ever dealt with anybody, and an adult person, somebody who's been their whole life, who cannot eat anything flavored? So absolutely, they have zero fruit and vegetables in their
mm,
diet. Zero.
that's
Mhm.
How long can a person live like that? Number 1.
Mhm.
And number 2, have you ever seen anything like that?
Mhm. Well, typically that's kind of more what you see with children. They kind of get into like what we call a food jag, where they only want to eat certain foods and that's it, nothing else.
Yeah.
Um, but for an adult, I'm surprised, like, where are they getting their nutrition? Because
That's exactly,
I
I don't
mean,
know, and it's very
without
scary.
having, like, a broken bone, I mean, by the time you even get to 40 or 50, you can, trip on a curb and break a bone if you don't have enough calcium or collagen. And um, yeah, I mean, that almost sounds maybe more like a psychological component where,
Mhm.
yes, it might be, triggered by something that's got, some kind of flavor, but is it really truly like, how do they react? What's the symptoms of that? Do they end up throwing up if they
Instant
get
throw
a
up.
flavor? Okay.
Instant throw up, like, instantly.
wow.
It goes
Huh.
on the tongue and instantly gagging, throwing up. Isn't that insane?
Interesting.
I've never
Huh.
seen anything like it, but I don't know where or how or who could help with something like this?
Yeah. With that, I would actually say starting with a psychologist and maybe even a speech therapist, because the speech therapist can help with that gag reflex. They do a lot. Dietitians work a lot very closely with speech therapists. If there's something that's a trigger from what they're eating that's causing the vomiting, that there might really be a mechanical problem with the way their mechanism is working with their esophagus, or, and it could be tied to some kind of trauma or something that happened when they were a kid, and that might be more psychological. It definitely sounds like I would start with a speech therapist first to see if it's something more actually functional, rather than, just the taste of something, because this sounds like it goes beyond a flavor to me. But I could, and even just talking to a doctor too, to see, you'd have to go to, maybe a doctor.
You tell doctors this, like you tell them, and they don't.
They look at you like you're crazy.
No, they don't understand the scope. And then, but it's like embarrassing for them. Like they don't, they're like, all I eat is rice, like that's it. But it's embarrassing for them to have to share it. And it's like, they wish they could change it, but the doctors don't. They just like, oh, it'll be fine. Just try new foods. It's just funny how, and that's where someone like you, who can guide and direct people in the like appropriate road, is so important, because there are people that are like this. And this is I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. It is a true thing. I have witnessed it. I care about this person a lot, and I just worry about the longevity of his life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for real. I hear you, because just listening to this, it sounds like they're not getting enough nutrition. And at some point that's going to, probably accumulate into some type of chronic disease.
Yeah.
To not have.
So clients contact you directly?
Yes. I have a website. It's dietitianmelissa.com. And people can reach out to me through that. I am also on social media. They can send me a private message if they want to work on something one-on-one. I am in the process of putting together a program to just help people more with a focus of weight loss and overall healthy eating. And I'll be launching that probably in a couple of weeks here. So, a couple of ways that, people can work with me. And I love to work with people. I really do. This is my passion. I love nutrition. I believe in it. And I believe that it can really help just about everybody. There's always something else out there that, that we're learning through research, that how nutrition is really helping our bodies overall for the long run.
The world is better with people like you, Melissa. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. Helping everyone make America healthy again.
Maha.
Maha.
I love it.
Yeah, I really do believe in that, though. Even
I know.
Movement happens,
Yeah. They coined it beautifully, but we're all like, yes, we want it. So I don't care what side of the political aisle. This isn't political. It's just a matter of, I think we're all on the same fence where we want our country to be healthy again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing so much detail and helping our audience really think about what they want their next chapter to be, because we want to be here. And, this audience is many are women over 40. And we know if we're just getting started in life, or we feel like we're just getting started, we really have to make sure that we're taking care of the vessel that we have. So,
absolutely. And, and I always say, it doesn't matter what field somebody is in. If you work your whole life to get to a point of retiring and wanting to enjoy your world with, family, children, grandchildren, travel, if you're not healthy, you can't enjoy and reap all the benefits from what you did working to that point. So it's important. It really is. And I'm just, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on here.
Hallelujah. You said it perfectly. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that listens. Be sure to go follow Melissa on social media, contact her, and, start off your year right. And let's get everyone healthy so we can live unapologetically badass.
And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Awesome. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd love that.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, stay unapologetically badass, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thank
Bye, y'all.
you. Bye.
All right, Queens, that's a wrap for today's episode. But before you hit pause, let's talk about you and how we can help you slay every part of your life. If you're ready to feel fabulous and look like $1,000,000, I've got you covered with my badass queen coaching, sparkling touchstone crystal jewelry, and Bella Grace collagen, because glowing skin and a sparkly vibe, that's a power move. Check it all out at reneecarbonefleming.com. And my co-host Sierra, oh yeah, she's bringing the heat too. Not only is she rocking Bella Grace collagen for her glow game, but she's also the queen of chic with her fabulous clothing boutique. From boosting your wellness to leveling up your wardrobe, Sierra's got the magic to help you shine inside and out. Check her out at Linktree/Sierra Whitener 7. So here's the deal. Head to our websites, grab the goods that'll help you live your best life, and let's make everything about you unapologetically badass. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with your fellow queens, because the more sparkle in the world, the better. Until next time, keep glowing, keep slaying, and remember, you're a badass queen who deserves it all.